that is new strategies, concepts, ideas, and organizations that meet the social needs of different elements. That can be from working conditions and education to community development and health. And these extend and strengthen the civil society. And social innovations include the social process of innovations such as open source methods and techniques, and also the innovations which have a social purpose, like online volunteering, microcredit, or distance learning. And social innovations are tied to the social entrepreneur, the one who goes into an entrepreneurial endeavor but does not necessarily gain money out of that. They have some kind of other drive. Schilling also mentions a bunch of different types of innovation. Incremental and radical innovations, which can also be called continuous versus discontinuous or disruptive innovations. Architecture and modular innovations. Competence enhancing and competence destroying innovations. Product and process innovation. I want you all to learn these different kinds of innovation, learn what they are about. And I will go through them here, but you can also read about them in the book. We start with incremental innovation. Incremental innovations to established products and processes. And incremental means that it is smaller changes to something. And it can create new product offerings and meet customer needs in established markets. It can enable product life extension as well. And it can improve processes to enhance quality and or reduce cost. So it is changes to something that is already established. It does not disrupt the entire industry. It's a smaller change to something. But it's not as small as just changing the color of something. It has to be some kind of new way of constructing a product or delivering a service or something like that. It cannot just be change of color. And this kind of innovation is connected to this graph that you also see in Schilling's book. I don't know if this is the exact right page for you guys. It depends on which version you have of the book, but you can find it in the book for sure. On the y-axis we have performance, and on the x-axis we have effort. We do not have time. Please note that is important. And here we have the physical limit of technological performance. So basically here you have some kind of innovation and some kind of new technology, let's say that. And then efforts are being made to enhance the performance. And as the amount of effort goes up, the performance also goes up and follows this S curve according to this theory. But then after a while, a lot of effort has already been put into enhancing the performance. But after a while, you reach some kind of physical limit of technological performance. It's not possible to go a lot further, no matter how much effort you put into this. So this curve is kind of approaching this line. Okay? So remember this S curve. We will continue to talk about it when we talk about radical innovation. Radical innovation can change the structure of an industry. It can change the terms of competition in an industry. It may threaten established firms and create entirely new industries. And you will see here how different radical innovation is compared to incremental innovation. We still have performance here on the y-axis, and we still have effort here on the x-axis. And here is the curve that we saw before with the incremental innovations. And here they say that we have some kind of radical innovation here, some kind of new thing. And then efforts are being made to enhance the performance and to enhance the product, if it is a product. So far, so good. We already know that. What we add in this picture is that in parallel with this development line, there are other efforts being made. Some other products are being tried out, for instance. And here we start to have something new, something that is competing with this paradigm that this product was in. It starts competing with it. But as you can see, this new technology has a lower performance than the old technology in the start. It starts lower. So this is superior to the new in the beginning. But then this is a new S-curve. This is in theory, this is the same as this S-curve. And efforts are being made to enhance this new technology. And that technology is able to surpass the physical limit of the old technology. And according to this theory, that new technology will reach its own physical limit of the performance. So that will be here, and then something new might come here, and then we'll have multiple S-curves. And this time, when we have two technologies and we have this kind of unsettled world where we don't know exactly how this technology will turn out to be, that we call a period of discontinuous change. And there are lots of different words for what this time is called, but in this model it's called a period of discontinuous change. We will talk about the same thing in many different ways, so you will see other graphs as we go along here. Here is one that tells you about product and process innovation. Here we have some kind of product that is invented, some kind of innovation that is starting to be spread. But we call this the fluid phase because it's not entirely set in stone how this product will look like here. But we have a high rate of major innovations here. You can see it's high up in x-axis, and x-axis is rate of major innovation. Here we have lots of product innovations, but after a while it's kind of evident how the product will look like, and then the rate of innovation goes down, and we reach something called a transitional phase, and rate of innovation goes further down. It's very established how the product will look like, and we reach the mature phase. And here on the y-axis we have, on the x-axis we have time. Product innovation is related to process innovation because in the beginning when we have the product, we do not exactly know how it will look like, and therefore we have not entirely decided how the process will look like either, and we are not putting a lot of effort into deciding that. But as we are getting more and more sure that this is the way we're going to have our product, then it's more worthwhile to invest into making the process of creating this product better. So then the rate of major innovations when it comes to process innovation, the process of producing this product, increases. And it reaches its peak in the transitional phase when we are really sure what the product will look like, but we're still doing smaller adjustments. But then after a while we have kind of found a good process for producing this product, and then the rate of major innovation goes down, and as we reach the mature phase, both these lines are kind of reaching some kind of steady state. Not a lot of major innovations are made here in the mature phase. And this mature phase can be something that an entire market is in. All players in the market can feel like, okay, we're in the mature phase, we're not doing a lot of innovation. And then a new player might enter with something completely new and disrupt the system, and then we'll have the radical innovation that disrupts the status quo. What we saw before is related to a concept called dominant design. Here we have a picture of different kinds of bicycles. When the bicycle was invented in the beginning, it was not completely sure what a bicycle would look like. There were different versions of it. You've seen this in movies, I think. Different ways of finding or imagining a bicycle. So in the beginning there was something called a battle for dominant design, and a dominant design would be the way we decide together, or the market and the players decide together, or what this product will look like. And you know what a bicycle looks like nowadays, right? That would be the dominant design on the bicycle. And if we go back to this graph, here some kind of battle for dominant design is played out, and that's why we have a high rate of major innovations here. We have lots of bids on how the product will look like, but after a while the dominant design is set somewhere here perhaps. And then when the dominant design is set, you don't innovate that much when it comes to the product, because you know now what the bicycle will look like. Then you start focusing on the process of producing the bicycle. So that's how dominant design is tied into process and product innovation. We can also talk about it in terms of the technology cycle. We start with an era of ferment, where we have design competition. We compete for the dominant design. What will it look like? And we have substitution. We change ideas of what a bicycle is from year to year perhaps, or from brand to brand. But after a while, dominant design is selected and everyone starts producing roughly the same kind of bike. Then we have an era of incremental change. Start changing smaller parts of the bike, and you elaborate the dominant design. Then some kind of technological discontinuity happens, and that would be the same thing as the two S-curves that we saw previously. First there was one S-curve, and then a new S-curve with a new technology came and disrupted this old paradigm, and that is the technological discontinuity in this model. So it's another way to describe roughly the same thing. Let's move on to architectural and modular innovation. Modular or component innovation entails change to individual components, but not the way in which they and other components are configured. One example is the change of bicycle seat technology. If you have a bicycle and then you kind of change just the seat, you perhaps take a gel-filled material for additional cushioning in the seat. That does not require any changes in the rest of the bicycle architecture. Architecture innovation, on the other hand, entails change to entire architecture or design of the product. The components might remain the same, but the way they are connected change. So if you add one new thing to the innovation, that means changing the entire architecture of it. And the example that Schilling gives is the high-wheel bicycle that is exchanged for a safety bicycle. In the 1800s, bicycles had extremely large front wheels. Because there was no gears, the size of the front wheel directly determined the speed of the bicycle, since the circumference of the wheel was the distance that could be traveled in a single rotation of the pedals. However, by the start of the 20th century, improvements in metallurgy had enabled the production of a fine chain and a sprocket that was small enough and light enough for a human to power. This enabled bicycles to be built with two equally sized wheels while using gears to accomplish the speed that the large front wheel had enabled. And the new bicycles were lighter, cheaper and more flexible. So that's an example of an architectural innovation. Now we move on to competence enhancing and competence destroying innovation. Competence enhancing innovation would be improvements in price performance that build on existing know-how within a product class. So that for one firm, an innovation would be competence enhancing if they can build on the existing know-how to produce the new innovation. Competence destroying innovation, on the other hand, that is mastery of new technology that fundamentally alters the set of relevant competencies within a product class. So this new innovation would require new skills, and you cannot make use of the old skills, so perhaps those are made redundant. And one example that you see here on the picture is the slide rule, and that is something that Schilling brings up in the book, and she tells this story. From the 1600s to the 1970s, no self-respecting mathematician or engineer would have been caught without a slide rule. Slide rules are lightweight devices often constructed of wood that use logarithm scales to solve complex mathematical functions. They were used to calculate everything from the structural properties of a bridge to the range and fuel use of an aircraft. Specially designed slide rules for business had, for example, scales for doing loan calculation or determining optical purchase quantities. So you can see that here in the picture to the right. During the 1950s and 60s, Köfel & Esse was the preeminent slide rule maker in the United States, producing 5,000 slide rules a month. However, in the early 1970s, a new innovation entered the system. This was the inexpensive handheld calculator. Köfel & Esse had no background in the electronic components that made electronic calculators possible, and was unable to transition to the new technology. By 1976, Köfel & Esse withdrew from the market, whereas the inexpensive handheld calculator built on the existing competences of companies such as Hewlett-Packard and Texas Instruments. By 1976, Köfel & Esse withdrew from the market. The handheld calculator had been a competence-destroying innovation for them. Their competencies were no longer required on the market, and they could not use their competencies to switch into making handheld calculators. But other companies such as Hewlett-Packard and Texas Instruments, they had such competencies. They knew how to meddle in electronic calculators and how to use electronic components to build them. So for them, this new innovation was competence enhancing. So it actually depends on whose perspective you have. So this same innovation, the handheld calculator, was competence destroying for Köfel & Esse, who had made a slide rule, and competence enhancing for Hewlett-Packard and Texas Instruments, who knew how to work with electronic components.